We have so much going on here. Obviously, we're getting ready to play the Cowboys, and so he's in your thoughts of game planning. But they still have guys that we have to prepare for. Obviously, they got Kenny Clark, who is a really good player, and they have good depth at that defensive end group. So you don't get too wrapped up into that, except for some of the things you're doing with the game plan, but also understanding that they have a lot of good players still over there, and get ready for those guys and shift your attention to that.
It's been a while, but you knew Matt Eberflus pretty well. Does that factor into, obviously, they're going to have a new defensive scheme and things like that?
Yeah. Again, on him, he's obviously evolved and we've evolved. So there's, it's been, like you said, it's been a while since we've been in the same building every single day. I know that he always is going to have those guys playing hard. He's always going to have those guys coming after the football. Those are things that I know that I see on tape of his, in the preseason, and things that I know that he'll really focus on. But there are differences with schemes on both sides of the ball. So some of those conversations that we would have a lot of in the off seasons, asking them questions about a team that we might be playing. You don't look too much into that, especially after the time away that we've had from each other. But I do think he's a really good football coach, a really good football coach. I always thought that of Coach Flus.
The meeting you typically have the players telling them their roles. Did you do anything different this year?
Yeah, we did very similar deal. Obviously, roles change, talks change. Try to keep things. You try to keep things fresh, but I think that's an important meeting for multiple reasons. One, I think it's very important that everyone's job description is very clear, and it's very clear of what we expect from our players, right? And because it's tough to hold somebody accountable if it's not clear. And I want their teammates to hear what that is too, so they can encourage them and hold them accountable as well within their role. And so a lot of similarities, obviously different players, different roles. So there were enough differences, I can't tell the same joke in there every time. So you have to, with every message, right? Just thinking about messaging, every message that I give is going to be about tough detail together. You have to find new ways to say that, new ways to visualize that, new ways to, so everything stays fresh and clear.
Nick, how has your relationship with Jalen grown over the last year?
Yeah, I think we've always had a really good relationship. And so it's just like any relationship, that the more time you spend with each other, the better the more you put into that relationship, the better that relationship is going to be. And so, yeah, I value that relationship that we have together. And like I said, it's been growing as we've been here. And we've worked on it since we've been here. We've been through ups, we've been through downs as a team. And those are the things that continue to help you grow, right? The pain that you go through together, right, brings people closer together. The competing that you do on the same team helps people grow closer together. The time that you spend with each other helps you grow, closer together. I think selflessness helps people grow closer together, and I really have talked about that at length with Jalen, of how selfless. Jalen was highly efficient as a quarterback last year and won a lot of games. But I think he has to take I think that there's a lot of talk that, oh, he didn't throw for this many touchdowns or this many yards. Well, he was super efficient and he won a lot of games. And I always admire how selfless he is in those moments, in those situations, because all he cares about is winning. And so when you see in a relationship, when you see the selflessness of another person, that grows you closer together as well. And so, yeah, all those things are why any relationship continues to grow, but all those things are why Jalen and I's relationship continues to grow.
With relationships, Nick, how have you tapped into the player-led leadership, the guys that have the confidence of knowing what it's like to win a title as you guys are entering this pursuit this season?
Yeah, we're not talking anything about a title or anything. We're talking about the Dallas Cowboys. How do we put ourselves in the best position to win this football game through our habits of OTAs, through our habits of training camp, through our habits this week? And how do you continue to get better as the year goes on? Well, that's your habits. That's all we're thinking about. That's all we're thinking about is this game and the players that they have on Dallas, and then our habits and our DNA of what we need to do to put ourselves in the best position to win. As far as to mention our leaders, though, we got great leaders on this football team that I know their focus is right in front of us. All that other stuff, it's not important. What we did in the past is not important. What we hope to do is not important. It's just about what we are trying to do each day to get ourselves better, to hopefully be playing our best football by the end of the year.
Nick, you guys are.
You're at 4-0 in season openers. Is there something to that? Is that coincidental, or is there something to the way you go into a season?
I think we've done some things really well as far as taking care of the football, taking the football away in those games. I showed a tape today of some missed opportunities that we had over the past 3 or 4 years of some missed opportunities. So I kind of showed some of our missed tackles, some of our missed opportunities, some block destruction that could be better from our previous, excuse me, first games of the year. And then that was for the defense. Tomorrow I'll do some of the stuff with the offense. But, as we look at the stuff and really talk about how important live fundamentals are, the tackling's a little bit different because it's live, right? The ball security's a little different because it's live. The catching's a little bit different because it's live. Now, the block destruction and the blocking are similar because it's usually live up front for the offensive line, except somebody's not getting taken to the ground. So I think we've done a good job there. Obviously, we can improve. That's why we showed some of those plays today. And really what I want their mindset to be is, okay, I saw some of the good plays we've made over the past 3 years, but I also see that we left some plays out there. And so for that to be even heightened in practice, of the wrap and the tackle and the catch and all those different things, knowing that it's about to be live here in a couple days.
Well, what have you seen from Adoree Jackson throughout camp, and as someone that's coached receivers throughout your career, what does he do that specifically makes life hard on receivers?
Yeah, I think he's always in the hip pocket of guys and close to the catch point. I also think he has a good knack for the football. Was a punt returner and has a good knack for how to take the ball away, how to catch the ball, those different things like that. I think he's competitive. And that's what you want. And I think we saw in the preseason, with him playing, that he'll tackle and he'll stick his face in there. So he's got toughness. And so you really want, as a receiver, you look at a lot, is how close is he to me when I'm making the catch. And I think that, he has the ability to shadow receivers and we'll need those efforts this week against a really good receiving and tight end core.
When you have 3 unsettled.
I'm sorry.
The captains, what went into that process this year?
Yeah, I won't get into all that, but the simplest answer is the players vote for him.
Along those lines, Zach and Reed, first-time captains on defense, how have they distinguished themselves in that area?
Yeah, obviously their teammates think highly of them with the way they lead, with the way they work. Again, I think when you're thinking about a captain, the one thing you're thinking is, is this guy mentally tough? Does this guy play really, really hard? I asked them to think about those things when they were voting. Does he play with great detail? Is he selfless? All those things. Again, it's always going to come back to tough detail then together for us. And I think at the end of the day too, all those things I said, but are they doing those things consistently? And I think those guys are definitely doing that. And their teammates obviously think they're doing that. And so it's always cool to be able to tell a new captain what their teammates think of them and give them that, as hard as it is when you have to cut a guy, or Howie and I have to cut a guy, it is a great thrill to be able to tell them that they're a captain, especially those first time guys. And just those guys have done a good job of being consistent in the people that they are. Again, when you're in a leadership position, you're not trying to be anybody else but yourself. And I think those guys have done that, and I think that's why they're voted captain by their peers.
I don't think you've had three unsettled positions on defense like you have this year, heading into the opener. How do you handle naming a starter, and then obviously from there moving forward? Do you want to have someone in place would you rather have them be there for the entire season, or are you going to have competition? Like, it's going to be where that position is open?
It's always competition for everything. I think it's unsettled to the outside world. We got it pretty much settled in here. I just like injury information, just like I'm just not sharing that information quite yet.
In the camp, though,
From your guys' point of view, maybe there, but we feel pretty good about where we are right now and the depth that we have at those positions.
Nick, we saw Landon out there on the field last week in practice. How good was it to get him back there just in any capacity, and how optimistic are you about his ability?
Yeah, we'll see how it goes. I know he's working really hard to get back. You're always excited when you get really good football players back on the field, and Landon's shown that he's a really good football player for the past 4 years here. And so, I know he's working really hard, and we'll see where we are by the end of the week.
2 more, please.
Liam Cohen recently shared the story about how you gave him some advice at owners' meetings about people ribbing him about his open press. Just be yourself. You've talked about how often you pursue coaches and other people for advice over the offseason, the summer. How many times do people come to you, and what has that kind of been like this year?
Yeah, obviously I'll keep any conversation I have with anybody private and won't say, hey, this guy reached out to me or that guy reached out to me. But, people have, and it's always an honor when they do, because they're noticing something from the outside that you hope you hope other coaches notice about your, the way you go about your business. So, yeah, it's always an honor. I think about the coaches that I reach out to for information and to talk through things with. I'm reaching out to coaches I have a high regard for. Some that I know and have heard them give me information before, and some that I don't know, but I'm witnessing something from their program as an outsider that, strikes up a thought in my mind to want to be able to reach out. And I would think it would be the same thing. So it's always an honor when somebody wants to pick your brain about those things, and always, usually willing to share information, because it's usually not another NFL coach, but you're always willing to share information because you want to be able to pay it forward, like people have to me.
Last one has changed since Marcus has been here. Is it realistic to expect him to contribute early or to be a part of the plan early?
Yeah, we'll see, Zach. He is a really sharp guy. I've always thought that of Marcus, and so he'll do everything he can do. And we got great coaches with Christian Parker, Joe Casper, to help them get caught up, to help Marcus get caught up. And so, yeah, we'll see where he is, by the time we get here to this game and, whatever moving forward. But one thing, when we were talking about bringing Marcus back, Reed Blankenship would talk to us about, how much he thought, how much Marcus helped him, Reed, develop as a player and help learn the scheme. So he's really sharp, and he's got great leadership qualities. And, it's awesome that's the memory that Reed has of Marcus, that he kind of introduced him into this thing while Reed was a rookie. Marcus was in his 4th or 5th year, whatever it may have been, and he helped him grow. And so now, with Marcus being here, you get him caught up to speed as quick as we can, and then he can help, Sydney and Andrew, as well as Reed, helping those guys grow. So it's a good. I'm really happy. I've always really valued my relationship with Marcus and who he is as a person and who he is as a player, and I'm really excited to have him back.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.